Shalom again, everybody. Ariel Tzadok here from the Kosher Torah School, found online at www.KosherTorah.com, bringing to you today's daily lesson in the Sefer Yetzirah. This is lesson 56 in our series, and we are in the third chapter in the seventh Mishna. But of course, we have to dedicate this, as all of our classes, to the health, safety, well-being, and prosperity of everybody today, facing all the trials and tribulations and recoveries that we are in our present curious global circumstances. Remember the point. Everything that we look as being an obstacle conceals within it an opportunity. It's all a matter of how we, using Sefer Yetzirah language, rearrange the letters. So everything, remember, is a matter of perspective. Isn't that what quantum physics teaches us today? Everything is based upon perception. Reality is based upon perception. And therefore, if your reality is based upon a certain perspective, why on earth would you be surprised that that's all that you ever see? Now, this is very, very important. Because remember, we've said this a million times already, the function of the Sefer Yetzirah is not theory. It is practice. It is not Kabbalah, which is later metaphysical mysticism. It is actual, down-to-earth, let's use the correct word, Aborigine energy healing. Energy healing, energy work, energy function. Again, we make a distinction in our Kabbalah language between the words creation, beri'ah, and formation, yetzirah. The difference is very simple. Something which comes from what we call nothing, that's what we call creation. And what's nothing? Nothing is that which is of our three-dimensional space, if you will. But something from something, that is what we call formation, Yetzirah. And our book is Sefer Yetzirah. Remember this, we do not form anything with the Sefirot. The Sefirot are the belima. They are the without essence, material. They're the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh dimensions of space, wherein which the lines that separate time and consciousness, our other dimensions, get very blurry. We don't see things in the same light. So this is why when you read in ancient literature, be it Talmudic or Hechalot Merkabah, and it speaks of the seven heavens. Now, the seven heavens very well might correspond to actual planets in our physical three-dimensional space. So, when we speak of places like Zivul or Aravot, and we speak of the fourth heaven, and there is a heavenly temple there, and the archangel Michael is the high priest there. That's out of the Gemara in Hagigah. Is that symbolic mysticism? Is that multidimensional spirituality? Or is it something tangibly extraterrestrial? I will tell you, don't go making distinctions between this and that. Don't go trying to cut and make divisions between one thing and the other. Because when you permutate things, you find that they are truly one and the same. I will tell you this. If you want access to a higher dimension, can you go to a planet in outer space to access it? Yeah, probably you can. But why would you have to? You can access it right here and now. We have the idea of the internet And through the internet on my computer, I tap a few buttons there or tap some things on my phone, and I can be in touch with and in contact with pretty much any place else on the internet, which at this point includes pretty much everywhere on the world. Now, I hate to use the word spiritual because it makes us think religion. And this is nothing religious. This is, again, energetic. This is natural. I like and prefer words like aborigine. Why? Or even shamanistic. Because I want to take these experiences and this energetic realities outside of religion and spirituality. And why? Because inside religion and spirituality, they are so much subject to fantasy. And fantasy, which is lovely for fiction, gets to be bogged down and problematic when you want to deal with nonfiction. Remember, fiction, fictitious, make believe. So if you enjoy movies like, I don't know, the Harry Potter series, which deals with supposed magic, enjoy the films, enjoy the books. But you cannot and will not learn actual, applicable, occultic mechanics from that series. That series is based upon the fictitious imaginations of the author, Ms. Rowling, who is an excellent author, obviously, tremendously profound, but that's not the real world. This is. And how can I say the Sefer Yetzirah and what we have here teaches the real world? The answer is, hey, don't take my word for it. You go check it out for yourselves. That's why, like I said, this is a book about practice, not theory. This is not a book about philosophy. This is a book about energy, healing, function, form. Our purpose, especially now from this third chapter through the end, is all about understanding and experiencing the Belima energies of the Sefirot and to tap them, connect them, plug them in to the letters. Now, what happens when I take the ethereal energies of the Sefirot and I plug them in to the letters? Well, if you're going to think of Sephirotic energy as just like a singular white energy, a white light blob with no distinctions and differentiations, then you're going to think of the connection of Sephirot to letters like plugging a lamp, if you will, into a light socket. I plug it in, it gives it its energy, I turn the switch, and voila, I have light. And you might think that that is how the Sephirot connect to the letters. And you'd only be half right. Yeah, that is technically, if you will, the mechanics of it. But at the same time, you have to remember the Sephirotic energy that's coming through, if you will, the electrical cord, has multi-phases to it, 10 different functions to it. I give the example of phases, or if you will, colors of light. And each one of these then, the source of energy is going to come into the lamp. And depending on how that lamp is calibrated, meaning the organization of its letters, it will reflect one of the shades of light. You know, white light, as we learned from science, includes within it the entire spectrum of the rainbow. Well, it's the same thing here. You have within the Sefirot, if you will, the white light of the Sefirot, the spectrum of the rainbow, and the letters are going to materialize this form or that form. And the entire purpose of creation, from what we understand, is the materialization of every single possible combination of all different forms. Now, if you think about that, how many could that possibly be? Well, think about how many combinations of DNA we have right here on our earth that we are able to measure with our modern science. All right, is there a number that high that we've actually calculated? We look at our Milky Way galaxy as having hundreds of billions of stars, and that there are hundreds and billions of galaxies. So you have hundreds of billions times hundreds of billions. We're dealing with numbers that the present human mind cannot actually fathom without a technological tool like modern computers. And let's put things into a wee bit of a context here. If we were to look back at the scientific knowledge and what was considered to be the rational foundations of reality, well, let's start 200 years ago, in the year 1820. In 1820, they had a model of the universe, an understanding of reality, and that's the way they looked at things. And here we are, 200 years later, in such a radically, absolutely different reality because of our discoveries. 2020. What are we going to be like in the year 2220? Okay, we're not going to be destroyed by aliens. World Wars 3, 4, and 5. We're not going to destroy, we're going to move on. And as such, you have to understand the nature of the discoveries that they will have in 2220. We're pretty much talking about right here, right now. And we're putting it into the language, the letters, that have been passed down to us since time immemorial. But remember, the purpose of the letters and the functions is permutations. So we're going to reconstruct the letter forms. We're going to rearrange these teachings and extract from them their essence, their truth, even though we might package them in a different form and call them by different names. This is the permutation. But now, in Mishna 7, which is now towards the conclusion of this chapter 3, we have 7, 8, and 9, which is going to teach us individual functions and practices of the three letters, the mothers. And I'll read to you Mishna Zayin, and it states, Himlich ot Alef baruach v'kashar lo keter. Tzarafan ze b'ze, v'tzar b'hem awir ba'olam, ravia b'shana, gawia b'nefesh, zachar b'emesh, u'nekeva b'asham. Deal with this one step at a time. Himlich ot Alef baruach. It says the letter Alef was given rulership, domination. The word is himlich from the word melech. In other words, the Aleph was made king on Ruach. But then, with that word melech, we have the next little phrase, kashar lo keter. And then it was connected to a crown. All right, crowns and kingships. Let's deal with the reality of what this means rather than look at this as some type of symbolic, poetic license. What does it mean to rule? Himlich, limloch. We say God rules. Right? Is God actually like a person like you and me? And he sits on a throne and he's got like a courtroom, and he's got like angels around him and all this other stuff. I mean, that is what our religious literature teaches. Of course, the authors of those pieces, that genre, the entire genre of literature, it was meant that all of this would be understood metaphorically and symbolically. But unfortunately, small-minded individuals, uneducated individuals, look at this stuff and look at it literally. So when the Bible says God sees, God hears, God says, they say, oh, it's all literal. In spite of the fact that the Ten Commandments says God has no form, no image. And they refuse to delve into depths of meaning, in other words, education, to recognize the nature of literature. And then They make the terrible mistakes, which misleads horribly many people and half the centuries, of misinterpretations, literalisms, which literally enslave the minds. So that is what we first have to emancipate. We're dealing with the letter Alef, the breath, the balance. I want the breath and the balance to actually have function as opposed to just symbolic meaning. How? What do I actually got to do? Well, I have to allow the Aleph to rule through the power of spirit, air. Even the word breath could be applicable here. Remember, what is the sound of the letter Aleph? That's correct, silence. Aleph has no sound. Yes, you can apply to it any of the vowels, A, E, I, O, U. Then the vowel with the Aleph would be A, E, I, O, U. But the letter itself has no sound. It is not like the letter Ein, which actually does have a sound. Aleph has no sound. Aleph is the inhale of the breath before the exhale. And for it to rule means, number one, you have to plug it in to its source. That's what it means, kasha lo keter, meaning that you put a crown on it. Remember what a crown is? A crown's on top of the head. It's not inside the head. It's not part of the body. It's something that's on top, kind of like the kippah here. As such, connecting into a letter, because you're going to see we're going to place each letter in dominance, in kingship, and crown it with a crown. The symbolic language simply means that we are focusing on the essence of the meaning of its essence, not necessarily its form. Reb Chaim in the text here goes into the form of the Aleph. We don't do that. Excuse me. That's the Aleph coming out. All right? No viruses, thank God, but Aleph. Kesher lo kesher. This is where most people make mistakes because they'll read the words, they'll acknowledge the literariness of it, but not make the actual connection of plugging in the energy into the socket. How do I do that? This is a meditative function. This is a prophetic function. In the long 40-hour course, I teach all about the prophetic positions, breathing techniques and exercises, abulafia techniques, other courses. We talk about the practices thereof. I'll put links to the Shadi Kedusha stuff, the sections 3 and 4 of Shadi Kedusha. I'll put it in the text here so you can have access to it. Now, to reign an Aleph first means perspective. Remember we talked about perspective in the beginning? Everything in your outlook has to go through the letter Aleph. Your breath. That's the secret. That's the key here. It's breathing, and it's the silence of the mind before the materialization of form. And that's exactly what's being taught here. This is making Aleph the ruler in the breath, the spirit, the lightest form of matter. Remember, you have physical, liquid, gaseous, and then energetic states of matter. Well, we'll deal with what we call the fire and the water. The earth, remember, that's what we're all going to create. That's to make, actually, asiyah. But right now, we have to deal with that foundational balance, that source which connects from the Keter all the way down to the Malchut. Even though in the Sefirot, the letter Aleph is said to balance between Hesed and Gevurah. It's like that solid line between them. So that line, according to Rabbi Chaim here, is the balance in the source of the letter Aleph. You've seen the letter Aleph. Do I have an Aleph here? Yeah. There you can see the letter Aleph. I'm going to make it right there on the screen there. It's really big. Okay? So, an Aleph has like a diagonal line with a little jot going up in the right and a little jot going down to the left. Or is it the other way around? Whichever. I love we're all live here. I'm over time. Oh my goodness. I ran out of time. We'll have to pick up and talk more about the Aleph in our next class. Ariel Bar Tzadok here, leaving you on a cliffhanger. Talk to you in our next class. Check out the courses. Meditation. Shalom.